So, I believe there to be three fundamental training principles that everyone should follow, no matter the stage in their training. If you're a beginner or all the way up through to advanced, although if you're advanced, you should have these three aspects down packed. And those three aspects are sleep, diet, specifically being in a caloric surplus, and training intensity. So, if we start with sleep, which in a previous video I talked about training yourself for better sleep. But a lot of people, they hit plateaus or they're not seeing the progress they want, and they think it's because they're not eating enough uh, protein per kilogram of body weight, or they're not taking the right supplements. But going back to the basics is what they need to do, and sleep is the number one aspect of getting more out of your training. So there's a lot of people complaining they're not making the progress they want, and they are on their phones until 1 or 2 in the morning doing whatever, and you're not getting quality sleep if you're doing that with the blue light and staying up late and going to bed at irregular times, getting up at irregular times. So getting your sleep on point is going to boost your recovery because you make uh, gains essentially when you're sleeping. That's when the growth hormone is produced in your body. You're going to recover better, have more energy for workouts in the next day or whenever your next workout is. You're also going to be less prone to injury in the gym because one of the biggest predictors of injury in the sporting world is lack of sleep. So that's something to keep in mind. And so if you've hit a strength plateau, for example, then fix up your sleep, and that might be all it takes to push yourself on to the next level. The next thing is being in a caloric surplus, aka bulking. And when most people think of bulking, they think of getting bigger and fatter, but your body fat percentage doesn't necessarily increase while you're on a bulk. And if it does, it's not the end of the world. A lot of people have what is called ab anxiety, which is where you can see muscle definition and some cuts and striations, things like that. And they don't want to let that go because it's not as aesthetic. But you're not going to get bigger and stronger without eating in a caloric surplus and actually physically becoming bigger. And even a lot of people who are on the higher end of body fat percentage, they want to diet down and get leaner, but making yourself physically smaller, even if you are losing fat, isn't going to produce the muscles you want and the gains you want. So you have to be in a caloric surplus, and that doesn't necessarily mean adding to your body fat percentage. That just means you are eating in a way that supports your training so that you can keep on getting each week. You could measure it each week, I suppose. You get bigger and bigger, and then only if you reach the point of you're not making much progress or any progress in your workouts anymore, and you keep putting on more body fat, then you might want to reduce the number of calories. But that's a very hard level to reach. That's pretty uncommon. And the one of the biggest mistakes beginners make in the gym is not eating enough. They like their beginner gains and they want to stay lean, but in reality, they're still fairly small and they're not going to see results of becoming a lot bigger and really standing out from the crowd until you start eating in that caloric surplus. And you can eat more, but don't go and eat fast food 10 times a day. Just a bit of common sense and high protein meals, things like that, and you'll be well on your way to getting that impressive physique. And it's fine to have a bit of body fat, a bit of fluff, because that only makes you look bigger. And the third training fundamental I want to talk about is training intensity. I see it all the time. I have a few friends like this. They've been going to the gym for years and years, and they're still bench pressing the same weight they were doing 2 years ago. They It comes down to they're not training hard enough. So a useful tool to keep in mind is RPE, rate of perceived exertion, and that means it's just a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being maximum, uh, going to failure, and then RPE 9, for example, means you had one rep left in the tank. RPE 8 means you had two left in the tank, and so on. So a lot of people go in to the gym, they do their usual workout, which their body is used to. They're used to the intensity, they're used to the weight. They might do 3 sets of 10 on bench, for example, with an RPE of 3 or 4, which is not going to be nearly enough to push yourself to greater levels of strength. So most people abandon training intensity when they make their beginning gains and they settle into the rhythm of things, and they have somewhat of an expanded comfort zone. And so from their baseline when they first started off, it feels like they're pushing themselves, but their comfort zone has expanded to incorporate that stress on your body from working out. And they sort of don't think about pushing themselves even further outside of that comfort zone to the RPE 7, 8, 9, 10 to get that intense workout. And another thing with training intensity is you see people on their phones like 5 minutes in between sets and their body's cooling down, and that is not conducive to intensity and therefore getting the most out of your workout. For you to get the most out of your workouts, you want to keep the intensity high, so each set should be close to failure, if not to failure. Although if you go to failure on every set, you're going to be exhausted by the end of the week and won't be able to do another week's worth of workout, so keep that in mind. But that being said, most people aren't pushing themselves hard enough, so you want to get up to that higher RPE numbers for every set that you do. And it's useful to time yourself between sets to keep the workout intense, or if there's a clock on the wall in the gym, I find those are really useful. And you just, when you hit the 2-3 minute mark in between sets, you just got to go no matter how exhausted you feel. So that's really going to be the 3 fundamentals you need for your training if you want to progress at a significant rate. Without these 3 things, or even one of these 3 things, you're going to be grinding and not seeing too many results, or not the results you want. So these 3 things I find are the most important training fundamentals for anyone if they want to make progress. And then you can go into more complicated things like programming and supplements on top of that if you want to push your training even further. But that's insignificant, essentially, compared to these 3 pillars you need to build your training regimen upon. So, thanks for watching.